Hey there, Rusty Drift RC. Here today I'm going to be building my Lunchbox Mini. It's been a while since I've built any kits. I wanted something kind of fun to get back into things. This may be a boring video for some. It's just going to be a quick build, but some might find it helpful. Alright, to start off, I'm going to put together the two main chassis halves and gearbox halves here. I'm going to start with these two counter gears. Make sure you use a little bit of the grease on those gears. Also, these are the plastic bushings that come with the kit. Make sure you get those trimmed really well if you're going to use these, and use your grease. I'm not using these. I'm going to be going with actual ball bearings. So we're going to start with these 3x25 shafts, which like to roll everywhere. You've got a bearing on the end of the shaft. It's going to go down into the gearbox half here. And you're going to have your gears going to go down on the shaft. And you've got another bearing that's going to go on top of that. And you're going to do that twice, one on each side of the chassis here. Alright, now we're going to put those two halves together. I'm just going to use 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, next you're going to need these two gears with these the shaft on it. And go ahead and get those greased up. You need these 37mm shafts. You're going to put bearing on one end. Your gear is going to go through, and another bearing on the other end. Okay, now and you do that to both gears, and it's going to go down into that hole there, and the bearing goes into the pocket and meshes with that gear inside there, and you can see the gear inside turning. All right, you're going to do that on the same for this other hole, same with the other gear. Okay, now the gear cover here, and our first sticker. First, put the caution sticker on there, and then it's going to go over top just like this. All right, next you're going to grab part number A3. It's going to be the motor mount here. You're going to want to get your two 6mm long machine screws. Going to use the holes for the 16 tooth pinion. Grab your motor, with caution sticker on it, with the black wire facing up. You're going to go ahead and put it through, and you're going to then tighten those two screws down. Once you've got your motor bolts tightened down, you're going to take your pinion gear and press that onto the shaft into place. Okay, now you're going to take your motor and And you're going to install that in there, and you're going to use the two 10mm long tapping screws and attach it right there. Next, we're going to assemble the axle shafts. It's a little bit tricky, but it's not too hard. You're going to take this yoke here, the shorter one, and one of these dog bone ends. Now there's a flat spot in there, so that when this goes in, turn it until you feel it go in all the way, and then put one of these small grub screws in the hole there. Okay, once you've got that screw tightened up, I'm going to take that cross piece, stick your Allen wrench through the hole, and use that to put one pin in the hole, and then just kind of snap the other pin in like that. Okay, and then rotate it down, use it to hold it in place. You grab the other half of the shaft, put that one pin in, and snap it in place. And at that point, you pull the Allen wrench out, and you've got a full shaft. You want to do that 4 times. Alright, next we're going to work on the front uprights. We're going to add the 5mm ball studs, and you make sure you put them on opposite sides, one left, one right, because these are for the you're going to have a left and a right upright. But tighten them down. You're going to need 2 bearings, one on the outside, one on the inside there. Make sure you get that down seated in there real well. And then the axle gets pushed through like that. And go ahead and use one of the body clips here through the hole, and that'll keep it from falling out. Now to start building the front suspension, you take part C11, and C1 is these little round balls which pop into these sockets here. Part C8 is going to attach right there on top of this arm unit with 2 of your 8mm tapping screws. Go ahead and tighten those down. Okay, once those are tightened down, you're going to take your the right side upright, and one of these 3x21 millimeter tapping screws. You're going to put one of the larger 3mm washers over top. You're going to stick this through the ball there. And now one of these little 2.6mm washers goes over that. just like that. And you take the spring like that, and this screws into that center post on that upright. Okay, and then do the same for the other side. Okay, so there you have that assembly. Again, you've got the screw, your 3mm washer up top there. You got the smaller 2.6mm washer down below where the screw goes into the upright. Next, we're going to assemble the front differential. Take your differential casing here. You're going to use 3 of the small gears here. They're going to drop right inside there. Okay. And you want to make sure you get those greased up real good. You got this small little shaft. It's going to go down in through the hole. And you've got your other joint here for your axle. That's going to slip in there like so. Flip it over. And you're going to install the other 3 gears, just like the first ones. Make sure they seat down in there. Grease it up. And another one of these gears with the axle joint on it. And now your differential is complete. Okay. Now once you've got this together, you can go ahead and put your bearings over the shafts here, and we're going to install the differential and the front arm assembly. Make sure you've got your gear greased up real good. Get that seated there. Your front arm unit. You got that pin right there. It's going to go into the hole right there. Like that. You're going to grab part number A4. It's going to go right over top. Just like that. And it gets locked down with 2 of your 8mm long tapping screws. Just go ahead and tighten them down. Now for the rear upper arm, I'm going to take part C11 here and C1 again, those little balls go into the sockets on the end. You're going to take these 10mm long set screws and run them down through these 2 holes here. And you're going to want to make sure that they're sticking out 2mm out the bottom. Both of those. You're going to have to go ahead and run them down and then measure them. And then you got these 2 5mm ball stud slash kingpin. It's got the shoulder on it. Those are going to go up through this hole here. Just like that. And use your 2mm Allen wrench to tighten that in. And you're going to want to do that on both sides. Next, you're going to build your rear uprights. They're the same. They go together the exact same way as the fronts, and then you attach them to the rear upper arm the same way you attach the front ones with your longer screw with the shoulder, the 3mm washer, the 2.6mm washer at the bottom, and then the spring. Alright, and then you're going to build another differential just like the front one. Make sure you install the bearings on that differential and make sure it stays together here. Now we're going to install it into the back half here. Make sure you've got grease on your on that differential gear. Okay. Put some more in there just to make sure. Slide that in there like that. Okay. Then you grab your rear upper arm unit. That's going to go in the hole there. And then you take your rear diff cover, part number A5, and that goes on just like that. And we're going to use 2 of the 6mm long tapping screws and just hold that in place there, just in the top 2 holes. I'm going to install the front lower arms and the bumper. I'm going to flip this upside down here. You're going to take parts C13 and C12, which is going to be your lower arms. Make sure you pay attention to the directions that they're supposed to be in. Make sure they go on the right sides. Put them right inside the holes there in the chassis. I'm going to take the bumper and line that up. Okay, and then you use the one of the 8mm tapping screws in the center. And your 2 25mm long screws are going to go on either side here. Make sure you get those in there. And those are going to also help hold the bottom of the differential case tight and closed. Once you get all of those tight down, you're going to go ahead and put your the dog bones into the differential there. Make sure you get it lined up. This is going to go, the arms go over that right there. And then you take part number C2, these little clips here, and you're going to snap that in there, and that's what's going to hold that together, just like that. Go ahead and do the other side, same way. Right, the rear lower arms are attached very much the same as the fronts, but they're held in place with this little plate here. It goes on. Okay, and at this point, everything gets locked in place with the wheelie bar and a few screws. Alright, now get your axles in and put the attach that spindle using your these same clips to get it like you did up front. Alright, now to assemble the steering linkage.
Alright, now I'm going to tighten those all down.
Now we're gonna install this flange on the back side and the top hole here. Tighten it up. Okay, and then you got your ball studs are going to go in the two bottom holes with these screws here. And tighten those up. Alright, now before you install the steering linkage, check the instructions and measure their servo height. You may need the longer ball stud and spacer or the shorter one. I'm using the longer one and the spacer because I've got a taller servo. Now, this goes through here. This arm goes through the hole in the chassis here and locks in on the back of that arm, and you've got one screw that'll go through this front hole, and you'll tighten that down a bit, and in the other hole you put another screw and that spacer. And then tighten those down. Make sure that this stays locked in.
Okay.
Alright, you're going to assemble the tie rods using your tie rod ends and small shafts here, threaded shafts. You're going to want to make two for the front that are oriented like this, where you got the ball cup facing one way and the open one facing 90 degrees to that. And those are for the front, and for the rear you want them, you make two where they're both oriented in the same plane, and on both sets you're going to want to leave a 1 millimeter gap between the two, so 1 millimeter of the shaft showing. Right, next, with some needle nose pliers, you're going to want to snap your tie rods onto the ball studs in the front, right there, and in the rear. Okay. Alright, now the upper chassis halves, the battery box area, basically. This is going to go together like this. You're going to have this piece in between. And 5 screws holding it all together. One at the bottom. Alright, I've got my servo centered, installed the servo saver and on there. And install the servo. It rests on these 2 pins here, like that. And then you've got 2 blocks that go behind there. And that's what it screws into. And then you can install the antenna bracket if you want, right there. Alright, now on the back here I've installed the switch and the switch plate. It's got these clips here to run the wires through. It'll help with cable management. And I've got the ESC mounted with the double-sided tape on top of the servo. The rest of these cables, once I get the receiver installed, which I'm going to install right up on this plate here, I'm going to have them tied up and put into this gap here. A couple cable ties. There's also more clips on this side for running some of the cable. Alright, now this unit is going to mount to the rest of the chassis. That hook there at the back is going to go into the hole right there. And then just held together with 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, you're going to make one more link. The ball cup and the other end, you want to be in line with each other. Make sure there's no gap between the 2 pieces when you build this one. And then that's going to mount right to the chassis here. One to the servo, and run one to the other steering linkage there. Alright, now on these body mounts, go ahead and put the countersunk screws into the body mount right there. And then go ahead and mount it to the rest of the chassis right there in those 2 holes. And you're going to want to do this to both sides. And on the other side, go ahead and run the motor cables up through the bracket. Alright, now go ahead and assemble the wheels and tires. And you're going to pull the clip out of the axle there. I'm going to use the axle pins to go through the hole where the clip was. Install the wheel hexes over the axle and over the pin, and the wheels are held on. Go over that, and are held on with a screw. Unlike a lot of models that use the nuts over the axles, this one you have a screw that goes into the axle with a washer.
And go ahead and do that on all four corners. Now attach the fake exhaust tips and then put the battery cover on right over those posts, and it's held on with two of these clips. And it's adjustable. It's got two different positions depending on the battery you're using. Alright, now we're going to put the magnets into these side plates here, into those pockets there. And then it just goes onto the body like that, through those holes. And you've got these spacers and screws to hold it in place. Alright, and throw the body on, a couple body clips to hold it in place, and you're ready to roll.